GCUC is a global coworking and conference community. We've had our fingers on the pulse of coworking since 2012, and we've connected thousands of operators, both in person and online. On the Juicy podcast, we talk with the people making it happen day in and day out. Let's get to it. Hey, everybody. Welcome back. Today, I'm excited to welcome Bex Murphy, the Chief Revenue and Experience Officer at Hub Australia. Bex has been instrumental in shaping how premium co-working experience are delivered across Australia with Hub Australia. She's blending hospitality design and community into every location. Recently, Bex attended a gathering hosted by the brilliant minds behind Unreasonable Hospitality, a movement and a mindset that has really redefined how we think about service in our industry, not just hospitality. We're incredibly curious to hear about how that experience impacted her, what ideas she's bringing back to Hub. So get ready for a deep on experience and design, team culture, and the small things that create unforgettable member journeys. Okay, first things first, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. I'm good. We're just emerging from the usual end of financial year frenzy. But we had a really great end to the year. So energized for that and excited for that momentum for the next financial year. Lots on the go, as always. But really excited to talk all things unreasonable hospitality today.
I love it. Okay. So one question that's a little off the wall, but it's the one that we're asking this year, which is, I'm so curious what your morning routine is, because one of the things I've really found is how people intentionally set their day makes a difference. And so I'm trying to learn from all of our amazing podcast guests and hear, what's your morning routine? How do you get your day started?
Well, I don't know. I feel like this is a disappointing answer. I really wish that I could say something amazing like meditation or journaling or a green juice, but I'm definitely more of a night owl than the 5 a.m. I'll squeeze in a run if I've got time for it. But honestly, some days I might just hit snooze and have a little Instagram scroll before I dive into the day. But look, I always walk into the office. If I'm working from one of our Melbourne CBD locations, that's kind of my version of easing into the day. It takes about 35 minutes. Fresh air. I listen to a couple of podcasts on the way so that by the time I get to my desk, I'm pretty much ready to go. So I don't know if that's the stuff of self-help books, but it definitely works for me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if that works for you, that's awesome. And a walk is a fantastic way to start your day. Yeah. Absolutely. It's so great for your mind. It's so great for your bodies. Fresh air. Love it. Okay. So what is the Unreasonable Hospitality Conference called? Because it's not called that.
It was called a summit. It was just called an Unreasonable Hospitality Summit. Yeah.
Okay.
They do a welcome conference as well, which is kind of different. But this was more kind of theory based around the principles of unreasonable hospitality.
Great. And how did unreasonable hospitality first come on your radar?
I actually think perhaps via you, maybe. But via Brad for me. So via our CEO, Brad. He read the book and was obsessed with it for good reason. And we have 1 million copies sitting around our office. We've all read it. And honestly, as you well know, it was such a great read and so inspiring. And then when this opportunity or this summit came out, it was kind of, we tried to make it happen and we did, which was exciting.
I love it. I'm very jealous. So what was one moment or idea that just blew your mind while you were there?
Yeah, I mean, look, the whole thing blew my mind, if I'm really honest. Like the energy in the room was so electric. I've actually spent more than 10 years of my career working in media and events, and I'm not sure I ever recall seeing a crowd of people or a collection of people so genuinely excited and engaged to be at a conference. So there was that kind of that feeling in the room, which was really amazing. Of course, there were like signature moments throughout the event. They recreated the hot dog stand. They did these grand personalized gestures for attendees. They had Justin Wellman, the magician, did a show and a surprise appearance. We watched a scene of the beer together. So there was all those those signature moments that you would not expect, but that really were amazing. But when I was thinking about picking just one thing, I actually found it really difficult. So I focused on a really tiny little detail that really stuck with me. I'd read about it in the book already, but hearing about it directly from the team, I guess this brought it to life in a slightly different way. But the 11 Madison Park team, when they were setting the table, they placed all of the plates with the logos all perfectly aligned. So if a guest picks up a plate in a certain way, they can read the branding on that plate clearly. It sounds small and most likely invisible to most of the guests that are there, but it's exactly the point. I love that their mantra for their team is that excellence starts the moment you walk through the door, not just at opening time. And it's these like really tiny details that are all within their control. But by mastering those and getting the team to master those, they're just setting the bar for everything else. Like most people would never consciously notice that. But I don't know, that the attention to detail that creates that real culture of care and precision. I love that. It really resonated with me. It's not a massive thing. The whole thing blew my mind, but I don't know, that one really kind of stuck with me and I love the thought behind it.
It was interesting. Before Unreasonable Hospitality, I was at a business dinner and I don't know if this gentleman had purposely moved our plates or not, but I sat down and I corrected my plate because there was a clear way I felt like it was supposed to face. And then another person showed up and they adjusted their plate and he like died laughing. He's like, you guys aren't so OCD. It's like, why? And he goes, because you both corrected your plates, like subconsciously, not even thinking about it, and I was like, oh, that's so interesting. And I'd forgotten about that little detail, but that's a great little detail.
These things matter, right? Yeah.
And so how do you define hospitality within the co-working context? Like, how has that definition shifted after attending the event?
I think for me, hospitality has the same definition no matter the setting. So it's how you're making people feel. And because it's a feeling, it's not like a checklist that you can sort of check off. It does feel a little bit harder to define or to hold on to. But honestly, I think that's what makes it powerful. I think there's a really important distinction between service and hospitality. Will talks about that, and I'm pretty sure they talk about it in the book as well. But service is that task, the what you do, and that changes depending on the industry or the setting. But that hospitality, that the way you're making someone feel while you're doing that thing, that care, the connection, the emotional impact, at its core, it's really the same. It's about making people feel seen and valued and genuinely looked after. So I don't think it matters whether you're in a co-working space or your local cafe or a fine dining restaurant. I think that definition sort of stays the same. I wouldn't say my definition changed after attending the conference, but one of the things that really hit home for me was that hospitality is the only long-term competitive advantage. So anyone can copy your product. Anyone can replicate the amenities, the latest amenities that you put in, someone else will put in the same amenity. They can outspend you on perks and all that stuff, but no one can copy exactly how you make people feel in your space.
Yeah.
And I think the cool thing here is that this feeling really has to be yours. So I think key to it is defining what hospitality looks like for your brand. So for some brands, that might be elegance and polish, but for others, it'll be humor or something that feels more informal. It definitely doesn't have to be fancy. I think it just needs to feel really true to you as a brand. A couple of nights ago, I was in Sydney. I live in Melbourne. I was in Sydney. I stopped by my little favorite Japanese takeaway. It was raining and cold. It was awful. It was awful weather in winter here in Australia at the moment. And while I waited, they brought me a hot cup of green tea. So I was sitting there waiting for my little takeaways. Now that's hospitality.
Fabulous.
Not expensive, not elaborate, just really thoughtful and really on brand for them. So I think that's the part we need to get right. Like at Hub, we introduced on-site cafes into our spaces like almost a decade ago. Not because there's a grand vision of the future of work, to be honest, but it felt right for us as a brand and the kind of places we were kind of trying to create. And I think over time for us, those spaces have become more than a nice to have. They really have become the heart of what we do. And so much more than just, sitting there and having a coffee or a meeting or whatever. And now we're looking, okay, right, how can we take all of that further? How do we make them feel really unique and really distinctively Hub? So yeah, I think the challenge in some ways, it's not about just delivering hospitality. It's about how you kind of deliver your own brand's version of hospitality. I think there's a really interesting opportunity in there.
I can't help but think about also community, because I think community and hospitality are really similar in a lot of ways. Like, for example, you can't, I've always been saying, and I think it's one of the things I repeat most frequently is you can't buy community, you have to build it. And it's the same thing with hospitality, right? And I also think that each space has its own community feel. So it's interesting. I think those two are very combined, the hospitality and the community. And I'm just curious, I know I'm out of left field on this, but any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I totally agree. I think community, like you said, just like hospitality, needs to feel right for your brand and your members
Mm-hmm.
within your space. So, when we're, a simple kind of bringing our community together, when we look at the things that resonate with our community or what they'll turn up for, it's so different from, what members will turn up for another event. Like our members, to be honest, they're not turning up at a dime. Their time's precious, their time's important. So we have to really think quite hard about what bringing that
Mm-hmm.
community together looks like. And look, that's actually been an ongoing challenge for us. How do we get that right? We talk to them, we ask them what they want. You ask them what they want. They don't always, they say well, they want something. It's not always what they want. So it's such a challenge. But continuing to find little ways to bring people together, so important.
Mm-hmm. So one of the things in Unreasonable Hospitality, they emphasize a lot that we try to do at Juicy is this kind of like surprise and delight factor. Can you share of an example of a moment like this that already exists at Hub or one you'd like to add or thought of post attending the conference?
Yeah. We actually have a surprise and delight program at Hub that we call Hub Lux Moments. And there's a few different layers to it. So it kind of ranges everything from, we have random acts of kindness. So every cafe has a kindness tab. So that's just a running coffee tab, and any member at any time can shout a member a coffee just because there's no rules. It's just like what we would just want to create these like really small little thoughtful moments. So that's one way we kind of add that in a very basic, simple level. We also have what we call sort of personalized experience. So those are more thoughtful, tailored gestures to individual members. Not massive, it might be celebrating a small milestone or someone might be having a tough week. A recent one we did was a bottle of champagne and a handwritten card after someone got a promotion, or even someone lost their lunch, the typical member kitchen scenario, someone lost their lunchbox. It was they'd invested in a really nice, expensive lunchbox. So we replaced it for them. Like there's little things like that we, make sure we've got a budget aside for, and the team kind of can on the ground in the moment when they notice those things, do something really nice. And then we have a couple of like larger things that we do. So we have what we call shared experiences. So in fact, again, they don't have to be massive budgets, but it's just we'll do things around the clubhouse every now and again. It could be some treats in the kitchen or, the old hot cross run at Easter. They're small, but they're delivered en masse, and they're just creating small moments, just because sometimes it's linked to an event, sometimes it's not. And then the fourth area we call pop-up adventures. So these are like bigger activations where we want to, we recreated an unyoked wilderness cabin in one of our clubhouses when we over in Perth. So these are like the larger scale, they cost more, but they have a larger impact. And we would love to do more of these. Like that's the really fun stuff.
Yeah.
So definitely the hardest to pull off and not at the cheap end of the scale. So we kind of try to do things along every end of the scale. Things that are really daily and easy to execute, but then also what are the kind of larger things that have an impact as well.
I love that. And Hub has always been known for having a really high touch experience. Is there anything specifically from Unreasonable Hospitality that you guys have implemented or you're thinking about implementing?
Yeah, I think one of the really big takeaways for me from Unreasonable Hospitality was that idea that excellence should be the baseline. It's not a goal. And Will's just so unapologetic about that. Excellence is non-negotiable. It's the starting point. And I absolutely love that. I think, they talk about when excellence becomes second nature and all those basics are mastered, your team can then be present, and you can only deliver hospitality if you're present. So that kind of baseline of excellence, it creates the space for generosity and connection and those like little human moments that is what hospitality is all about. But of course, it doesn't happen by accident, right? It's training and repetition and clarity. So I think that was such a massive takeaway for me. At 11 Madison Park, every time they changed the menu, about 130 things changed. Wild. And they spent 6 weeks educating those teams on those 130 things. Daily lineups, product sessions, these things called Wednesday happy hours that they introduced. And it was all designed to ensure the team had the knowledge and confidence they could deliver the service component without even thinking. And then that freed them up to focus on the people and the hospitality side. So I think that for me is so powerful, and I have thought about that a lot. We've just completely reworked how we do training here at Hub, actually. And on the back of some of the stuff from Unreasonable Hospitality, we've launched kind of our own Hub Academy. So our own version of training. It's a training program we're calling Hub Academy. And it's a business-wide training program that is designed to really like embed our hospitality ethos into every role and every team. So I talked about like, what's your brand of hospitality? We really want people to understand what our brand of hospitality is. Because if we want to be known for 5-star hospitality, we have to train for it and across everyone. So we'll still obviously train people on the how to do the jobs part, but we also train for that empathy side, how to listen, notice, anticipate, and all those kind of things. So for example, it's not just how you give a sales tour, what you show, it's how you build rapport along the way. How do you personalize the follow-ups? How do you spot those unspoken needs or create those moments within your interaction with them for surprise and delight? So yeah, I think that training side of it is the side that, we really want to continue to focus on so that we can really get that baseline of excellence happening.
Hey there, if you're in the co-working and flex space industry, or even just curious about it, you need to be at Juicy. We've got 2 amazing events lined up for you. First up, GCUC, happening this October in London. Tickets are on sale now and the lineup is looking incredible. Can't make it across the pond? No problem, we've got you covered. GCUC 2026 is headed to New York City and we'd love to see you there. At both events, you can expect expert-led sessions, small group roundtables, a vendor expo, and non-icky networking. We've got drinks, dinners, after-hour hangouts, and tours of the coolest co-working spaces in town. It's where the future of work meets real human connection. So, what are you waiting for? Head over to juicy.co to grab your ticket today. We'll save you a seat.
Yeah, I think the thing I hear over and over again in regards to hospitality when I talk to people about it is it just comes down to the people. It just comes down to the people. And it's about hiring the right people and then getting them to stay. And training is a huge element of that. It actually was interesting when you were talking, I was thinking back to training. Like the last place I really got formalized training was when I worked for a corporation, and I worked for Dell a long time ago. And I remember towards the end of my career, I was so happy and impressed that they were doing things like they sent me to a class in New York about managing your inbox because everybody's inbox was so crazy. So they taught you how to do folders. And then they basically sat there and wouldn't let you leave until your inbox was at 0. And then they sent me to a class on negotiations. And I learned so much in that. And, these are great things to help me in my job for them, but they're things I took with me, That's really nice too, having upskilling that you are upskilling them as a human, not necessarily just for their job, which is so lovely.
Totally right. Yeah, preparing them for the next thing as much as helping, help move forward as well. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, for sure. So it seems like training is a big part of the way that you inspire them. How do you challenge them in new ways?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things, again, that I really loved from the conference and I guess Will's style was the kind of storytelling element of what he did. And it was funny because a lot of the things and concepts that I've remembered from the conference itself are because of the stories that he told along with them. And I think the way he talked about how he said, talked about stories being that really powerful weapon in your arsenal. And I guess it's so true, right? Like bringing to life an example, bringing to life a concept with a story makes it so much more memorable and really hones in on what the point is. So I think, there's definitely that element of it. It's sort of, I walked away thinking, we can all do that. We can all bring those stories into and inspire people with stories and get our point across in a different way. That's a little bit more inspiring, I think. So I think that's a really great part of it. I think one of the other things that I loved, sort of slightly different from how they looked at things, was the interrogation of the guest journey. So we do customer journey mapping. I'm sure, like many brands do. I love it. It's a fun part of the job. But the Unreasonable Hospitality team did it on a whole different level, like really interrogated every tiny point of the journey and focused on those small areas where perhaps their competitors weren't. So, obviously when we do our journey mapping, we, like most businesses, we're focusing on those key moments, whether it's the welcome or, a moment throughout that's happening. But what are all of those tiny moments in between that people aren't focusing on that create an opportunity for hospitality and an opportunity for you to have a competitive differentiator from someone else in your space? So I really love that as well. I think from a bringing back to the team point of view, that's something that we're getting stuck into and we're starting to really break it down. I think that's exciting for the team to get around as well, because then everyone's bringing in ideas and big, small, whatever it looks like, we're creating it together.
Well, it's interesting when I think about kind of like what are the parallels between the restaurant world and the co-working world. There was a part in the book where they talk about like removing the host stand, right? So you're not standing behind this podium, basically. And that they went and researched people, and when they came in, they knew them, and it was very cool. And it was really interesting because when I designed my first co-working space back in 2010, oh my God, I didn't put in a front desk because I didn't like that barrier, right? And I didn't like the formality of it. It felt off. And so what I did was I didn't put in a desk. There's not an obvious reception in my co-working space. But myself and anyone that I trained over the 8 years I was open, there was a chime on both doors, and you could see both doors. And if you heard the chime, you had to look up. And if it was not a member, you needed to be standing and walking towards that person and making eye contact. And then once you got to a certain range, you needed to put your hand out to say thank you or, welcome to the space. And that was how they knew where to go. We always manned the doors. Oh, and like to this day, I am Pavlov when I hear that ding. I'm like looking, but to me that was like I was like, oh, like to me that was an acknowledgement that I felt like I was on the right track with that.
Yeah,
and we did get to a point where we did on tours tried if somebody called it for a tour and we had their first name and their last name and their company, of course we looked them up.
Yeah, definitely. That information is so key. I think how we've been talking a lot about how do you build and store that data so that it can be shared with the team. So if you, same, like if you know someone's coffee order, how do we, like, it's great that one person knows that, but how do we kind of get everyone to know that? And that's kind of a little bit difficult with storing of data and all that kind of stuff. But finding those opportunities to really personalize. There's so many of them, right? There's like a million of them throughout the day. I think one of the cool ones that I loved, and again, I think it's in the book around touch points, was like, yes, focusing on the highlights and the opportunities to do it well, but also the other things like the dropping of the bill, like often awkward, like really transactional, can you pay for this? But then creating a kind of signature moment around that. They leave a full bottle of cognac on the table for guests to pour themselves. So I don't know, again, how do we bring that thinking across what we're doing? I'm not suggesting we start pouring spirits in our offices for everyone. That's right. But it does make you think, right? We send invoices every month. Like, how do we do that in a different way that feels different?
Well, it was interesting. Stormy, who works with me, used to also work with me at the co-working space. And one of the things we always do when we onboard a new member or our interns is, and one time I asked her, I'm like, how do you know this? She knows everybody's favorite color, and she knows like something they would love to, do you prefer flowers or sweets or whatever? She asks a bunch of questions so that when it comes time to surprise and delight somebody, we have information. And I was like, oh, that's so brilliant.
It's so brilliant. We've started doing that on our onboarding forms, like asking a couple of key things so that we can personalize. Maybe it's whatever the welcome experience is when someone gets into their office. So we spoke about that at the conference as well. Like, don't be afraid to ask. Like, just ask someone what their preference is.
What do you love getting?
Yeah,
I'm happy to tell you.
Exactly.
Happy to tell you. Okay, so did the conference spark any thoughts for you about how co-working might evolve in the next few years in terms of experience and not just being a workspace?
Yeah. I think one of the most striking things for me was the near complete absence of talk about AI or tech in general. The focus was just solely on that human experience. And I think that's really telling. It's not that AI and tech won't play a huge role. Of course it will. And in the next 5 years, I'm sure it's going to completely transform the way we work, and it will definitely shape loads about the experience delivery side of things. But I think that human layer, that emotional connection, I think that's going to keep growing in importance as, tech and AI keeps growing as well. That's the stuff that people remember, and that's what builds loyalty. So I think that's really interesting and exciting. Like, how do we continue to really focus on it? I also think what I mentioned earlier around brand and differentiation, I think they're just going to become more and more critical in hospitality and experience design. So, we all know that right now, so many brands in our space are using the same kind of words like premium and hospitality led and flexible. And it makes it really hard for a member actually, or a potential member, to really know if a space is right for them.
Right.
And like, does it fit their business? Is it what they're looking for? Because we're all sort of saying the same thing. So I think we'll start to see a shift, or maybe I hope we'll start to see a shift where, like I mentioned, brands can really define what hospitality means like to them and what hospitality feels like for them as a brand, not just the generic version. So, and I think then, then each brand has kind of their own hospitality fingerprint, and that's going to help set them apart. And then we can communicate that and help you attract the right customer. So I think that's kind of a really exciting part of how the experience side will evolve.
Yeah.
And then,
yeah. So it's so interesting. I absolutely agree with you on the human to human aspect of it. I do think AI will play a critical role in the personalization. And I think that's going to be really cool. But, it's interesting. I got my graduate certificate in foresight during the pandemic. And, I really look at the future a lot. And I agree that the human to human aspect is going to be even more important. And, we've also been saying for stage for years, nothing, absolutely nothing can replace face to face. You just can't replicate it. It's not going to happen. Maybe in, 10 or 15 years, there will be, that Star Trek-y kind of thing where we can all, move through the air, but we're not there. And so it is about being human. And, it just goes back to what drives me to produce Juicy is, I feel like where we need to get human is during the workday, right? Yeah. That's when we need to be human. That's when we need to connect to people, because that's where we spend the majority of our day. And that's why I need everybody creating more coworking and thriving and growing and building, because we need to connect with each other on a human level. And we can do that in co-working spaces.
Yeah, that's right. And, there's that whole loneliness epidemic, and there's so much going on in this space, isn't there? And co-working has such a massive role to play in bringing people together and making them feel like they belong somewhere. And again, up on about this brand thing, but again, like creating somewhere that is so defined, it means that someone can belong to something that they feel like really resonates with them for so many different reasons. So I think it's really interesting to see how that'll evolve.
Yeah, well, I really appreciate you sharing your experience. Sounds like you recommend.
I do. It was great. And they're doing another one, I believe, next year. So
great. Okay, so we should go. And that's fabulous. I would love to go. And I'm going to go totally now back to, let's talk about you as an individual. And I love this question so much because I think it tells us something very human that you can share with our listeners. And that's if you could take us back to where you were when you were 12 years old. And if you could go back and tell young Rebekah one thing about her life that would help her, what would you say to her?
Yeah, it's such an interesting question to think about. I was in Little New Zealand when I was 12 years old. I think probably for me, it was, I would tell myself that you don't have to have everything figured out, and tell myself that honestly, most people don't. Even the ones that look like they do, they probably don't. I think, like life's just about doing your best, and we're learning as we go, and we're figuring things out along the way. And most of us are winging it, and that's totally fine. You make mistakes and change your mind and try things that don't work and all that stuff, and it's part of it. Yeah, I think that's probably the thing that would be most helpful for me.
I love that. And I think it's incredibly helpful. And I think it's so true. Like, we all think everybody else has it figured out. Right. No one has it figured out. Literally no one.
And then
everybody's just winging it, and it's okay. You're probably killing it. And that's a really good reminder. I have a huge morning, I do meditate and read and all that. And my reading today was about how important it is to be present. That if you're in the past or in the future, you're in fear of something usually, or you're regretting something. And if you just stay present, you don't have to feel that way. And I was like, Oh, wow. Like I spend so much time worrying about things that haven't happened. I don't do a
Yes.
ton of morbid reflection anymore. I've learned to kind of cut that out. But
Yeah.
yeah, I spend a lot of time thinking about things that could go wrong. And then I'm like, why
Yeah.
aren't I thinking about all the things that could go right?
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, there you go, folks. There's your little learning from the coworking podcast. But probably the whole thing was learning. Thank you, Beck, so much for entertaining us and helping us learn what you learned from the summit, because we can't all go, but it's so fun to dissect it and talk about it and look at it through the lens of coworking. And we couldn't have done it without you. So thank you.
Thank you for having me.
We're so glad you were here. And you guys make sure you like and follow. We've got a lot more coming this summer, and we'll look forward to seeing you guys in London or New York. All right. Next time. Okay. All right. Stay on. That was great. I love that. I actually learned you had some really good highlights that were awesome.
Good.
Loved it.
Good.
Thank you. It's going to be a really good one. Thank you for tuning into the Juicy Podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to like and follow us for more juicy content. You can stay connected with us on social media by following us at Juicy Global. We're looking forward to having you join us next time for more insightful discussions. Until then, keep exploring the co-working world with the Juicy Podcast. Ciao.